Hi, today I'm going to be reading chapters 6 through 10 in our story, A Good Kind of Trouble by Lisa Moore Ramey. The first chapter is titled Tuna and Metal, and it's on page 34. Tuna and Metal, page 34. Please open up your textbook and follow along. I never knew metal had a smell, but it does. It's sharp and stings my nose as I walk into sixth period. I'm glad I have shop at the end of the day, after fifth period. My head is swimming with numbers and equations, and getting to make something pushes that all away. I didn't really know what to expect when I signed up for shop. I've always liked making things, and when Daddy was a kid, he took wood shop and made a little bench we still use. I figured it would be fun, but I sure didn't think it would be almost all boys. On the first day, when I walked in and saw all those boys staring at me like I was a piece of hair in their soup, it sure felt good to see Yolanda's upside-down wise smile. Since we're the only girls in class, we cling together like staticky socks. Shop is like taking a class at Home Depot. Instead of desks, we have work tables and stools. One whole wall is lined with big power tools. I'm afraid of the table saw because there's a rumor a kid sawed the tip of his fingers off one year. But the rest of the equipment seems less scary. One machine can drill right through metal. Get your trays and get to work, Mr. Klossner says, his big fuzzy mustache waggling at us. Yolanda and I grin at each other. We both think Mr. Klossner's mustache is hilarious, especially the way when he's thinking about something, he'll twist the ends like he's trying to unscrew them. I pull on the heavy work gloves Mr. Klossner likes us to wear. I feel ready to do serious business as soon as I put them on. Even though Mr. Klossner says trays, my project doesn't look like much of anything yet. It's a small rectangle of metal, and I have to hit it over and over again with a riveting hammer until it's completely covered with little round divots. This will make the metal look more decorative, according to Mr. Klossner. Once I finish that step, I'll get to use a big machine with clamps so I can fold up the four edges of the metal rectangle. And then I'll have a tray. I don't know what I'll do with it when it's done. Probably give it to Mama so she can put her bracelets on it or something. Each time my hammer hits the metal, a clinging vibration flashes up my arm. Tyler leans over. I can smell the tuna he had for lunch. So yeah, your tray looks really good. Tyler has tiny teeth and a huge smile. Thanks, I say, without making eye contact. And I shift away, hoping he'll take the hint. Tyler always gets too close when he talks to me, like he wants to share some great secret. I sure wish he'd stop. I also wish he would breathe his tuna breath on someone else. Tyler drums his fingers on our work table. His nails are bitten to the quick. You have a pretty name and all. Smooth. Yolanda giggles, and I want to kick her. But instead, I just whack my project harder, making the metal bounce. I hear folks call you Shay sometimes. That's like me. Hardly nobody calls me Tyler. I go by Ty. I keep pounding away, zing, zing, up my arm. Tyler puts his very sweaty hand on my arm. Hey girl, You don't have to kill a thing. I jerk my arm away. I'm not. I wish I could say what I'm thinking, which is, bye, Ty. You're supposed to have your work gloves on. He doesn't say anything to that, but he doesn't stop smiling at me either. Talk about annoying. Tomorrow I'm switching seats with Yolanda. People with sweaty hands should keep them to themselves. So in this chapter, Tuna and Metal, the tuna represents the smelly breath that Ty breathes on Shayla when he's flirting with her. And Metal is, of course, for the fact that they're in a class called Shop. We don't have that class at CHS, but you can take metalworking classes through our tech programs if that's something you're interested in. The theme in this is that Shop class is for people who identify as male. It seems like Shayla is noticing there aren't any other people who identify as female in the class. And then we come to find Ty just really flirting with Shayla, and it's making her uncomfortable. So this chapter is dealing with some issues around the concept of sexism. The idea that sometimes people who identify as a male gender feel as though they can be a little more aggressive with people who are female, identify as female. The quote that I've taken is from page 34. So if you go back to page 34 and find the quote, it starts with, I didn't really. And let me find it here. She says, I didn't really know what to expect when I signed up for Shop. It's right here. I've always liked making things. And when Daddy was a kid, he took wood shop and made a little bench we still use. I figured it would be fun, but I sure didn't think it would be almost all boys. So that's a quote that shows that Shayla is noticing the fact that Shop class does not have any people who identify as girls in it. The next chapter we're going to move on to is chapter 7. It's called Sirens. Here it is. Sirens. We're now on page 38, so please follow along. Mama likes to pick me up after the long line of cars in the drop-off pickup zone has cleared out so she can just whisk to the curb. But I don't like sitting next to the flagpole by myself looking like I was forgotten. Only a tiny group of kids is left by the time I finally see Mama's white SUV. Why are you so late? I ask. Excuse me, did my child just ask me why I was taking time out of my busy day to come pick her up when she could catch a bus home? I know Mama isn't asking a real question, and I decide to change the subject before I get into trouble. I tell her about Coach West asking me to come out for track and how I'm going to do it. Mama starts laughing. Thanks, I say, and I cross my arms really tight. Mama tells me and Hannah all the time how she will always encourage us, but she's not going to lie to us either. She has never told me I'm athletic like she tells Hannah. Oh, I'm sorry, she says, seeing the look on my face. But you? Running? A whole fresh batch of laughter steams up the windows. She even has tears sprouting. It's not funny, I say, but a small smile is trying to steal over my face. When Mama laughs like this, it's really hard not to laugh too, even when she's laughing at you. Her whole body gets into it. I try biting my lips from the inside, but before I know it, I'm laughing right along with her. I can't wait to come to one of your track meets, she says, getting herself together. No way, I say. My seatbelt feels like it's pressing hard against my chest, and I'll have to pull it away from me. You and Daddy can't come. I'll never be able to get down the track, knowing you were busting a gut in the stands. Okay, baby, whatever you say, she says. Now leave that seatbelt alone. I let it slap back, and I stare out the window. We pass a house that looks like Hansel and Gretel might live there. How come you're not taking Wilshire? I ask. Mama always takes the same route home, but today she's going a different way. There's some protesting going on, causing a mess of traffic. Mama finger grips the steering wheel tighter. Protesting what? That trial started today. Mama's voice is low and serious, and I wish we could go back to joking about track. People are acting like they already know what the verdict's going to be. What do you think's going to happen? I've heard my parents talking about what might happen if the police officer who shot that man isn't found guilty. They talk about it when they think I'm asleep. I don't know, sugar. I try to keep an open mind, but all these trials seem to end the same way. Doesn't seem like black folks can get any justice. Is it Black Lives Matter doing the protest? No, Mama says, but people are squawking on the news anyway how it's Black Lives Matter causing the problem. She sighs and looks over her shoulder to change lanes. I look behind me too, and I see a whole bunch of police cars. And then, just like me, turning around, flip to switch or something, their lights start flashing and their sirens go on. And you bet I start thinking they're after us. Pull over, Mama. Don't worry, baby, Mama says, but her voice is tight. She pulls over and we watch the line of police cars whiz past us, their sirens shrieking. After a second, Mama pulls back into traffic. Mama, I chew on my lip for a minute, watching the blue and red lights get farther away. Do you think the police hate us? Hate black people? Oh, no, honey. Don't start thinking that. Mama gives my knee a little squeeze. It's like she taps her nails on the steering wheel, thinking. Okay, like if you eat unhealthy food for a long time, you're going to be unhealthy, right? Well, for too long, people have been fed a diet about black folks, about folks with brown skin, making them think that we're scary. And that's how the police have been trained to act. It's going to take a long time to change people's minds. Maybe after the trial is over, people will know we're not scary. They'll know we matter. Oh, baby, Mama shakes her head. I reach over and pat her hand. It'll be okay, Mama. There's a video this time. No way could anyone say that officer was innocent. Mama doesn't say anything. So this chapter, Sirens, the word sirens is the name for what's on top of a police car. That's a siren. And what happens when black people and white people and any person hears a police siren, that tells them they might be getting pulled over. And this story highlights the fact that for black people, hearing that siren might be a little bit more nerve-wracking for them because of what can happen between black people and police. It doesn't always go as well or as easy for a black person as it does for someone who's white because of the things that Mama is talking to Shayla about. She's talking about how for a long time people have been taught to think about black people in a certain way, and that's going to take a long time to undo. And Shayla's hoping that the trial will be part of undoing that. If you go to page 41, we'll take a look at the quote that I have prepared. It starts with, well, for two, and that's what I was just talking about. So let me find it, page 41. It's right here. Well, for too long, people have been fed a diet about black folks, about folks with brown skin, making them think that we're scary. And that's how the police have been trained to act. It's going to take a long time to change people's minds. That's the quote I pulled from the text to highlight that information about how black people are treated when they're pulled over by the police. Not always a positive situation. The next chapter we're going to read is called Pictures and Pits. And it starts on page 43. When we get home, I go straight to my room without even stopping to get a snack like I normally do. I kick my shoes off and fall onto my bed. My favorite thing in my room is my bulletin board, full of pictures of the United Nations. Me, Julia, and Isabel in silly poses. Almost all of them are from those photo booths they have at the mall and amusement parks. A line of 4 pictures that's almost always in black and white because that's the cheapest. I have loads of them. The pictures go all the way back to when we were little, and we're making goofy faces in most of them. We'll probably take a ton of great ones this year. Too bad they don't have a photo booth at school. Maybe someone will take a picture of me at a track meet. I imagine myself crossing the finish line first, with everyone cheering and confetti shooting into the sky. That would be a great picture. I flop over onto my belly and snuggle my blankets. Mama must have just done laundry because my sheets smell like Tide. I should start homework, but I'm too comfortable to move. Then Hannah walks in. My sister barges into my room whenever she feels like it. But if I go into her room without knocking, she cuts my head off. "What's up?" she asks, as if I asked to talk to her. She takes a seat on my beanbag chair, and little bits of stuffing spill out from the seam. Daddy says we look alike, but I'm waiting for that to be true. We're both tall, but since Hannah has always played basketball, for her it's a bonus. Dad made me try and play basketball last year, but after getting an elbow in the eye and me crying about it all over the court, we both decided the sport was just not for me. We have the same hair, thick and sort of bushy, but she has hers figured out, while mine is just usually a mess. She plucks her eyebrows into little neat arches, and her ears are pierced at the top, where it looks really cool. She probably has a tattoo like most of her friends, but if she does, she keeps it hidden. Hannah always seems a little bit bored, as if there's something better going on, and if you would just stop bugging her, she could get back to it. I hope by the time I'm a senior in high school, I will have mastered that look. I'm probably going to get killed in science, I say. I know I'm being a little dramatic, but it's nice having her attention. I got partnered with Bernard. I told you about him. He's mean. Today he knocked his whole desk over. Why? I think he didn't like getting yelled at. It was scary, Hannah. Hannah sighs in that way that means she's just about done with me. Bernard's that big kid, right? Yes, he's huge. And black, right? I don't think he's scary because he's black, Hannah. I think he's scary because he acts mean all the time. Hannah taps the black armband she's wearing and smirks at me. Hannah and all her friends wear black armbands to show their support for black people who've died when dealing with the police. It's not about that, I argue. Hannah shrugs, then puts her phone, buzzes, and she pulls it out. I can tell by the smile on her face that it's her friend Regina texting her. Hannah gets all silly when she and Regina are together or texting each other, or pretty much if you just say Regina's name. Seeing that goofy smile on Hannah's face is pretty funny. She looks completely un-Hannah-ish. How's Regina? I ask. Hannah's smile gets wide, but then she looks at me like I caught her rifling through Mom's purse, and she frowns at me. Yeah, that's the Hannah face I know. She shakes her head like I'm so exasperating. Are you still sitting in the lunch pit, or have you gone over to the basketball courts yet? When I first started at Emerson, Hannah told me the black kids sit by the basketball courts. Hannah is really weird about race stuff. Not only does she tease me about not having any black friends, she only has black friends. I sit at the lunch tables. I'm not going to call where we sit a pit. And I'm sure not going to tell Hannah what table I sat at today. It would take more explaining than I know how to tell her how I sat with an Asian group when she's so annoyed I don't sit with the black group. The whole thing seems pretty weird to me. In elementary school, we sat by grade, next to whoever our friends were. I sit with my friends, Hannah. Hannah goes back to her phone and tries something in quick. I'm certain she and Regina are talking about me. Eventually, folks are going to say, you're too good. You know that, right? What? I'm supposed to just sit with people I don't know? Jules and Iz are my best friends. I point at my bulletin board. We're the United Nations. Why would anybody have a problem with that? Because, she says, like that's a real answer. Anyway, don't be surprised if you and your little group end up. Hannah puts her hands together and then splits them apart. You know, you don't know what you're talking about, Hannah. I'm almost yelling, and trust me, you don't want to yell at my sister. Okay, fine, Miss Fang, Hannah says, getting up. Don't say I didn't warn you. And be nice to Bernard. She walks out of the room and leaves my door wide open. I get up and stop myself from slamming it and just shut it quietly. Hannah acts like she knows so much more than me about everything. I grab my spiral notebook off my desk. It seems like I finally have interesting stuff to write in my observation journal. I can't believe Hannah wants me to be nice to a bully. I do not sit in a pit, and Hannah is wrong about me and my friends. We are the United Nations, even with that trial going on. I still think Hannah makes way too big of a deal over race. Isabella, Julia, and I know that for us, race doesn't even matter. And what matters is us. Hannah is being ridiculous if she thinks that me and my friends are going to split up. So, in this chapter, Pictures in Pits, the pictures represent all the nice pictures on Shayla's bulletin board of her and her friends. And the pits is what the black students call the lunch tables at the school. The black students at the school take their lunch over by the basketball courts. And mostly white kids and Asian kids sit in the cafeteria at the lunch tables. And Hannah is wondering why Shayla hasn't started doing that. The quote is on page 45. So if you turn back to page 45, it starts with, Hannah taps the black. So let me find it. It's right at the bottom of the page. Starts here. Get that book in focus. Hannah taps the black armband she's wearing and smirks at me. Hannah and all her friends wear black armbands to show their support for the black people who've died when dealing with the police. So that's a lot like this armband, and we see it's on Shayla. So that tells us that eventually Shayla is probably going to be wearing a black armband too. But at this point in the story, she's not that interested in the black armband or any of the things that her sister Hannah is saying about race and the fact that race really does matter and it should be taken into consideration, especially when viewing how people are being treated. So Hannah is challenging Shayla's thoughts on racial identity. And she's just not there yet. She's also warning Shayla that her friend group might end up splitting up, and she thinks mainly because they are from different race. It might take them a little extra work to keep their friendship together as they're moving through the school. The next chapter is called Eyeballs, and it's on page 49. Eyeballs. When we sit down for dinner that night, I wait until Daddy has a mouthful of steak before I ask my question. Did I tell you guys I'm supposed to be an eyeball? Just like that, I thought, his cheeks go extra puffy because he's trying not to laugh and swallow at the same time. What now? Mama says. Like Ralph Waldo Emerson. Miss Jacobs says he was really into observing. So that's what we've been doing, observing. like I'm an eyeball, and writing what I observe in my eyeball journal. Taddy smirks at Mama. He's a big smirker. They're teaching the dead white men a lot earlier these days, huh? He says. Don't start, Richard, Mama says, but her voice is smiling. What? What do you mean? I ask. Before Daddy can answer, Mama cuts him off. There's nothing wrong with learning about Emerson. She throws a look at Daddy. No one can toss a look like Mama. Your father just means a lot. Most, Daddy interjects. A lot, Mama repeats, of things you'll be taught in school are from a certain perspective. Dead white men's perspective, I ask. Bingo, Hannah says, grinning like she's won something. But my school is named after him. That's why Miss Jacobs said we should learn about him, I try to explain. And he was an abolitionist. Mm-hmm, Daddy says. Richard, Mama warns. Shayla, it's great you're learning about Emerson, especially at your age. I don't think I'd even heard of him until I met your father, who used to quote him all of the time. My eyes fly to Daddy. He has his bad puppy dog look going strong. Make the most of yourself, for that is all there is of you, Daddy says. That's one of my favorites. He sees the way I'm looking at him. Hey, I never said I didn't like what the cat had to say, but they sure do need to expand what you're all exposed to. There's a whole lot of great thinkers who are people of color. I know, Daddy, I say. Sometimes my family acts like I don't know anything about being black. Not everything that is faced can be changed, Daddy says. And then Hannah cuts in and says, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. Is that an Emerson quote too? I ask, and Hannah elbows me hard in the arm. Oh, quit, Hannah. That's James Baldwin, Daddy says. A black man, Hannah says. I stare down at my plate. Embarrassed I didn't know that. So in the chapter titled Eyeballs, the theme in this chapter, and it comes from her dad and from Hannah, is that there is a lack of black perspective in the school's curriculum, meaning that it would be a better way to teach about history, about literature, if you included more perspectives, meaning people of different races, and especially more perspective from people of color. James Baldwin is a very famous black author, and Shayla's a bit embarrassed that she didn't recognize that the quote came from him. Page 51 is the quote that we're looking at, and it starts with the word hey, and it's where Daddy is saying, hey, I never said I didn't like what the cat had to say, but they sure do need to expand what you're all exposed to. There's a whole lot of great thinkers who are people of color. So that's a quote from the text that supports the idea that her dad is feeling there's a lack of black perspective in the school's curriculum. Now we're moving to our last chapter, which is called Caterpillars, chapter 10, on page 52. The next day in science, Mr. Levy gives us some free time at the end of class, and after rubbing my hands together really hard, I make my way up to his desk. I'm trying to force myself to ask him if I can switch partners, but Bernard is staring at me like he knows just what I'm going to say. Mr. Levy's eyes are huge behind his glasses. Yes, he says to me. Are butterflies arthropods? I ask. It was the first question to pop out, and I feel dumb because I know the answer. Yes, they are. We'll be looking at some lovely examples in our next lab. Bernard starts walking to Mr. Levy's desk, and I panic. Thankfully, the bell rings, so I start to rush out of class. But my backpack is on the floor, and I trip right over it. Bernard breaks out into loud cackles. It doesn't surprise me one bit that Bernard would laugh at me for falling down. I try not to look at him because I don't want him to see how mad I am. In elementary school, Bernard would just step right in front of the first person in line for the rings like he was a big deal, which I guess he was, and no one would say a word. When he got a hold of the rings, he'd swing and laugh and kick his big Adidas at us until it was time to go back to class. Then he'd jump off and send the rings crashing into the middle pole with a clang that made me flinch. Bernard grabs my hand and yanks me up, and I sprawl right into him like I'm one of those rings clanging into the pole. I push away, and I grab my backpack from the floor. "You don't got a breaker, bro," someone says, and from the tingling feeling I get in my stomach, I know exactly who that someone is. I look straight into eyes so deep green you would think they were apple Jolly Ranchers. Chase chuckles and slaps Bernard on the back, and then he walks out before I have time to say I'm not broken, or maybe I'm just a little bit because I can't seem to make my mouth work right. "I hurt you?" Bernard says, his mouth twisted in a knot. I clear the butterflies out of my throat. "Nah, I'm good." "Get to class," Mr. Levy says. "That's what we're doing," Bernard says, and he pushes past me hard enough to almost make me fall down again. But I don't care. All I can think about is that Jace smiled at me. In second period, when Mr. Powell hands back a history test, I see I only got a 92. When this boy in my class, Alex, he got a 94. I don't even care. Usually Alex and I compete to see who can get the highest grade. And when I lose, it really bothers me, but not today. Jace smiled at me. Still, I can't help saying to Alex, "Don't get too comfortable. You just got lucky this time." "Oh, you got jokes," Alex says. "We'll see, smart girl." He gives me this serious nod and cracks me up. At break, I plop down under our magnolia tree next to Isabella and Julia. I'm just about to tell them about Jace when I stop and I look at Isabella. "You look different," I say, squinting at her, trying to figure it out. "You got your braces off," Julia explains. And I see she's right. Isabella hadn't said one thing about getting her braces off when we were all texting last night, and the only pictures she posted online were of Kalu, one of her cats, and her swollen toe after she stubbed it. "I can't believe you didn't tell us," Julia says accusingly. "I mean, seriously, we tell each other everything. Why didn't you tell us?" I ask, and then I notice something else. "Hey, you got your eyebrows done too." I don't think my voice could get any more high-pitched. I have caterpillars for eyebrows. And I try to talk Mama into letting me get them waxed, but she says N-O. She really does spell it out, as if that makes it sound more case closed, which actually it does. "I wanted to surprise you," Isabella says. Then she blushes and she drops her head, letting her hair fall into her face. "My mama wanted me to lose the unibrow more than I did." She glances up at us and then back down. "I don't look weird." "You look scorching," Julia says, and she doesn't sound jealous at all. Isabella bumps her with her shoulder. "Jace smiled at me," I say, needing to change the subject. "Oh well, I guess he's going to be your boyfriend tomorrow then," Julia says and giggles. "Why do you want a boyfriend anyway?" Isabella asks. I wish I had a good answer for this. Last year in 6th grade, I liked this boy Joshua, but he asked Brianna Merkins to be his girlfriend. Brianna had the long blonde hair. She was always swinging it around, and when people would tell her that her and Joshua made a cute couple, she would get this look. This I know look. I want to be able to give that look. I don't want to say that, though, because we're in 7th grade now, I say instead. Julia says, "Jace is super fine." Then she says, "He'll probably end up with someone gorgeous." And then she glances over at Isabella. I look at Isabella, too. With her non-bushy hair, her big hazel eyes, her regular-sized forehead, her perfectly groomed eyebrows, her shiny straight teeth. I do not like what I see. Even though the bell has rung, I say, break's over, and I get up for class. So this chapter is called Caterpillars. It has a couple of different meanings. In science class, they're going to be studying butterflies and caterpillars. And Shayla claims her eyebrows look like big caterpillars. And what do caterpillars turn into? They turn into butterflies. And Isabella really has transformed. She has had her eyebrows plucked, her braces are off, and she just looks like a different person. And most of the friends here are starting to transform. They don't realize it yet, but little by little, they really are changing since they've moved to the new school. So if you take a look at page 56 and go to the spot where it says Jace is super fine, it's right at the bottom of the page. And here it is. Julia says, Jace is super fine. Then she says he'll probably end up with someone gorgeous. Let's see. Probably end up with someone gorgeous. And then she glances over at Isabella. So this section here is talking about the transformation that Isabella has just had. And it really, instead of making Shayla feel happy for her friend, it's actually making her feel very jealous. And Julia is implying that maybe Jace is going to be taking an interest in Isabella and not Shayla. And we'll have to see about that. So that's it for today. And now that you've listened to this, these 5 chapters, go into Google Classroom and complete the CA, where you'll find all of these quotes written out, and then you'll give me your analysis, your thoughts on what those quotes mean.